The neighborhood sits like a blunt punctuation mark at the bend of the Lachine Canal, a narrow finger of land where the city's working tide once surged. From the earliest days of settlement, the area that would become Pointe Saint Charles drew people and machines to the same thin spit. Rivermen navigating hazardous currents, millwrights fashioning water-powered machines, and later, a thrumming ensemble of railways, factories, and smokestacks that defined an industrial age. The canal changed everything. Completed and enlarged in stages through the early 19th century, to bypass the rapids of the St. Lawrence, the Lachine Canal transformed this shoreline into a corridor of hydraulic power and cheap transport. Water wheels and later turbines fed flour mills, textile works, iron foundries and tanneries. Warehouses and shipyards multiplied along the banks. The canal's tugboats and barges, the clatter of hoists, the whistles of locomotives, these sounds stitched together daily life and labor. Parks Canada and several histories credit the canal as the cradle of Montreal's industrial expansion. And the presence of industry here remade the city's social geography. That industry needed bodies. Waves of immigrants arrived to build and staff the new factories. In the 1840s, and again through later decades, many were Irish, escaping famine and displacement. They found work digging the canal and laying tracks, or raising row houses in narrow streets near foundries and yards. The demographic imprint of these early arrivals lingered in the neighborhood's rhythms: parish life, mutual aid societies, and a fierce local culture of solidarity. Archives and local histories recount trails of crowded boarding houses, candlelit kitchens, and the small joys that knotted a community together even when wages were low and winters were long. The 20th century layered new urgencies over the point. Rail corridors and hump yards, the great sorting grounds for freight, cut swaths through the district. Steel and manufacturing boomed through world wars. Immigrant waves from Eastern Europe and Quebec's own rural hinterlands added to the mix of languages and trades. Yet, the same economic logic that built the neighborhood would also imperil it. As industry modernized or moved away, factories shuttered and jobs vanished. Abandoned tracks and empty warehouses became the new landmarks, and the Lachine Canal, once a conveyor of commerce, slowed into a quieter backwater. But the story of Pointe Saint Charles is not only one of decline. From the 1960s onwards, the neighborhood became recognizable for a different kind of muscle: social activism. Residents, community organizers, and a cohort of idealistic students and health professionals pressed back against neglect. In 1968, a small group founded a community clinic that offered basic health services and, importantly, a model of local self-help. The clinic would become a symbol and seed of wider campaigns for community control of services. Legal clinics, tenants associations, and informal networks of mutual aid emerged. Battles for decent housing, public space, and social programs were waged not in boardrooms, but on stoops and in parish halls. Journalistic retrospectives and community archives later framed Pointe Saint Charles as a crucible for social innovations that reshaped provincial policy.
Physical traces of this history remain visible if one knows where to look. Rows of modest 19th century houses with ornate wood trim, the old brick facades of mills, the linear parks beside the canal where cranes once lifted cargo. The Wellington Basin and other lock structures recalled the canal's mechanical ingenuity. Railway embankments and former yards mark the routes that once funneled goods through the city. At the same time, signs of recent change have begun to appear. Conversions of warehouses into lofts and creative studios, bike paths replacing idle tracks, and community gardens in former lots, gestures that blend preservation and reinvention. In the past 2 decades, as Montreal's real estate markets heated up and the recent revival of interest in inner-city living spread, developers have eyed the Pointe's gritty architecture and waterside access. New projects and amenities have brought investment, rising property values, and new neighbors, alongside fears among long-standing residents of displacement and the erosion of a social fabric stitched over generations. Local groups and municipal actors have navigated these changes unevenly, sometimes harnessing redevelopment to protect affordable housing and sustain services, other times watching historic communities yield to market pressures. Coverage in the local press and community testimony underscore both the gains in local infrastructure and the anxieties that accompany rapid change. Walking the streets of Pointe Saint Charles today, it is possible to imagine the layers of time stacked one on another. A child playing in a park shaded by an industrial relic, a mural that remembers dock workers and their unions, a community clinic whose waiting room still hums with conversations about rights and care. The neighborhood's character grew from the work that once defined it: physical labor, collective bargaining, and a culture of neighborly defense. And those rhythms continue to define how the place confronts contemporary questions about development, memory, and belonging. If history here has a lesson, it may be that cities are conversations across generations. Pointe Saint Charles shows how infrastructure can both create opportunity and concentrate risk, how communities remake themselves in the wake of economic upheaval, and how local institutions, clinics, legal aid groups, tenant councils can translate grassroots energy into lasting change. The Lachine Canal still carries pleasure boats and joggers where once it carried freight. The locks glint in the sun. But under the surface, in the architecture, in the names of streets, and in the municipal debates that continue to swirl, the Pointe keeps a catalog of work and resistance that resists easy erasure. To listen to the neighborhood is to hear industry's aftertaste in a story that keeps being written, by veterans of labor struggles who remember the whistle of the mills, by organizers who fought for clinics and tenants' rights, and by new residents who try to honor a past that is never quite theirs. That ongoing conversation, messy, proud, and insistently human, is the truest guide to Pointe Saint Charles.
I hope you've enjoyed this video. This channel has more videos of Montreal in the Montreal playlist, which is linked in the description below the video. Channel also has more videos of my adventures bicycling through Latin America, Southeast Africa, Central and Eastern Europe, and I have playlists for all those countries that I've traveled through, available on the same channel, Hum of the Earth. So for more videos of Montreal and other cool places around the world, you can subscribe to the channel by clicking on the red subscribe button and clicking on the bell to be notified when new videos come out. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.